Welcome to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus is to provide physical, mental, spiritual info and positive vibes to help you endure and adapt. We'll be bringing you experts to provide strategies to handle stress and boost your immunity. Welcome, everybody. I'm super stoked to have this amazing human being with us here today in the Immunity Community 2020. My friend, and I just love discussing how I know these people that I'm interviewing. And we met through the Fit for Service Fellowship through Aubrey Marcus and on it, and became very fast friends. I feel like I've known you for a long time, which is pretty cool. We've only hung out once in Sedona. That's a pretty amazing thing. So we had a very impactful connection and a lot of similarities in thought process and just the way we're approaching life. So we have Seve Mangrum with us, and the main things, I love that you call yourself a stress relief coach. So we couldn't have a more appropriate person. And I think a lot of your background is through movement. I'm gonna let you share. So the elements that Seve is gonna share with us are his company Evoke Health, the Moore system, and also Pain to Power. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right to it so we can give our listeners some tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the fitness and health field for a little over a decade now. Coming from a background in dance, athletics, self-development, spiritual development, and then I have a degree, bachelor's in communication from DePaul University. And long and the short of it, because I could talk about my story for hours and hours and hours, but growing up in Chicago and being raised by a mother who was very intrigued and passionate about holistic health and was very progressive in her approach to well-being, kind of set the foundation for me to continue to walk that path and learn more and more about these things. So I had a really unique upbringing with witnessing and seeing the polarity and how people live their lives between my mother and father. So my mother was very into spirituality and into Chinese medicine and holistic health, and my father was a ball busting, go get 'em, Green Beret, just hard ass.
Just opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah,
complete opposites, which was great because I got to see the very masculine and very feminine side of the spectrum, the yin and the yang, however you want to perceive it. So I was able to be raised with a lot of variety and perspective in how to approach life, what works, what doesn't work. And so I really basically picked the things that I saw consciously that were ways in which I wanted to embody. And then I saw the things that were passed down to me unconsciously that I needed to work through, which were plenty. Still working through them.
Every day, right?
We always do, right?
Yes.
The journey never ends.
Yes, that is true.
So essentially over the years, I continued to sharpen my sword, if you will, in relation to movement and gaining a lot of knowledge and wisdom from my dance background, from athletics, growing up and playing basketball in inner city Chicago. Continue to dive deeper and deeper into my awareness of spirituality and kind of what it was that I perceived as source, divinity, God, the things that allowed for me to have faith in where I was at different points in my life and how to continue to harness that connection. Obviously seeing the different frameworks mentally that allowed for me to break through certain self-limiting beliefs and challenges that I found. And then the connection to the emotional body and how that correlates with all the other pieces and allows for someone to either thrive or to be in a state of suffering and surviving life. So that is what basically drew me to create my own business, Evoke Fitness and Health, after I left Equinox about 4 years ago, which is a company that I was working for 7 years. And with all of that, I started to create this system, which is the MORE system. So movement, optimization, and recovery. And when you put those three elements into place, you get energy, which
That's awesome.
essentially, if you have those three elements, you don't have stress, right? If you're moving your body with novelty and variability, and you do it from a intention-driven state, which is basically doing activity that is both outcome-oriented, but then also process-oriented, aka movement that is to gain strength, performance, and things of that nature, but then also movement that is just for the sake of connecting with the inner child, right? So more yin, right? Dancing, martial arts, things that are done to kind of harness a certain energy within oneself, but not to be driven by the ego. And then optimization, so basically lifestyle behaviors and habits. Who are the people that we're connecting to? What is the mindset and certain things that we're taking into ourselves in terms of the media, the conversations that we're having with certain people that are either encouraging us or not, as well as the things that we're putting in ourselves physically, nutrition, supplementation, all of that. And then the way in which we recover ourselves, our sleep, our active and passive strategies for recouping our bodies, minds, and souls. So that's how I basically coach all my clients from pain to power. So that is my overall 90-day program that I take people through, is built upon the MORE system.
That's
Dude,
this is like, I'm like, all right, we could talk for the next 12 hours. I just want to fly out there and do the work.
Oh, for sure,
it's really, and that's why I just like, I love your approach, and I love, like, you not only have a foundation of like very intelligent and advanced more type movements, which we've connected on a lot of different gurus, so to speak, but people that we've studied together that are similar, but the nutritional component and what's very unique, which is really cool, that I love about your approach, is that spiritual approach, and then also the emotional approach. Considering how stressed we are right now, because there's a realistic stressor going on, and I think there's also and this is just my opinion, there's an overabundance of media and a lot of negativity coming at us, and there's space to really experience just some of the emotions that we don't like to experience, like sadness, that can lead to depression, or anger. Last night I was having a conversation with my daughter, and I really helped her express her anger, because she's pissed. She's missing like sophomore year of high school, and she's like misses school and the organization. So I like to, I definitely want to do more talks with you, because I want to dive into like the spirituality stuff and the emotional health. But for our listeners, can you just leave or share with us some, just a couple cool tips or anything that, if you have a couple ideas about recovery and movement and things that we can do at home right now when we're all stuck in this quarantine. Obviously people are outside more, but can you leave us with some ideas and concepts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so, one of the big things is in relation to stress relief, especially due to everything that's happening currently and a lot of this physical distancing and quarantining and spending way more time at home, is the balance of creating structure and then also having spontaneity as well. So a lot of people have been stripped of their structure, right? A lot of people, they have a workplace that they go to, they have a set hours in which they do their certain work within their career, passion, right? Whatever it is that they do to make money. And so it's really important to cultivate and create routines and rituals and structures while still allowing for a little bit of spontaneity. But you have to be able to schedule your spontaneity. So the thing that I really, really encourage people to do, where you can start to eventually incorporate all the other little strategies and behaviors and tactics, is to create a morning and evening routine. And the morning and evening routine, in my opinion, should be for you, right? Should be disconnected to the phone, disconnected to outside opinion, considerations, things that you're being told. Yeah, social media, news, all of that bullshit. So basically creating what I like to say, at least an hour first thing in the morning, and then an hour before you go to bed that is strictly for you.
Awesome.
Right? So for me, that looks like, in a nutshell, without going too deep into it, because we could do just an hour podcast on my morning routine.
Of course.
But it's basically finding stillness and quiet. That's the first thing that I do. Is creating hygiene and a routine for self-care, right? From like a physical standpoint. So like brushing the teeth, flossing, doing a little bit of like tapping, and like just kind of almost, I have this practice where I do, it's kind of a unique thing where I like actually physically like kind of like touch my face and like kind of like love on my face and like nurture myself. Like just doing like these little small things where I'm like acknowledging like the shape of my face, the structure, right? The appreciation, and just kind of like dousing myself with love physically.
So
with
cool,
touch.
because it like keeps you like omnipresent to yourself. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do that, and then I do with the stillness practice, I do like a little quiet meditation where it's different ones every day, or at least every 2 or 3 days. And then I do a light movement. So I'll go out for a walk, and I'll do a little bit of like bouncing, where I'll just, without, if you have a trampoline or a Bosu ball, you can do it on there. Really good for like just moving lymphatic fluids and tissue, and like moving soft tissue. So I'll do that. And then I'll also do a little tapping as well, where I'll just have that working through the different channels and meridians, right? Working on the lung channel, opening things up for the respiratory system, which is really, really important right now as this virus is affecting the respiratory and the lung channel. So that's really powerful. So that's just kind of a touch on my morning routine. And then I'll do some similar things in the evening, where I'll do just a little gratitude practice and kind of do a little prayer and, a thank you to great spirit, source, God, whatever it is that you believe as higher power. So I'll do that. I'll do some like really light reading and things that kind of are uplifting, that are not too cognitively stimulating, because I want to kind of down regulate a bit before I go to bed and not have too much knowledge or too much heavy stuff on the
Stimulation.
mind. Yeah. So really like bring down the stimulation.
I love this, because this is and for those listeners who are learning and meeting Seve for the first time, these are not exercises for strength or stability. These are, I look at these as more spiritual or emotional ways to embody who you are as a human, so that you can actually tap into yourself and be more present for everything else that's in life. Beautiful stuff, man. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. These are definitely falling in the line of the emotional and spiritual elements, right? Of the kind of the 4-tiered approach, which is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. These are definitely spiritual and emotional practices. So that's like the first thing that I'd really do, is like really get into starting your day and ending your day with you time, right? And then creating nice little chunks throughout the course of the day, whether 2 or 3 hours of yang for both business and personal. So that might mean taking action on pivoting and adjusting your business and your line of work, and creating a little ingenuity and creativity in how to shift your business, especially if it's being greatly affected by this, massive shift that we've had. So that is another really important thing to do, is have a chunk of time where you're very action oriented in your business and career. And then also doing the same thing from a personal standpoint. So making sure that you're taking action on your physical health. So doing a lot of like conditioning, so like jumping jacks, burpees, push-ups, lunges, upper body pulling exercises. Also really, really powerful to do to maximize your physical output as well. So, and then, in between those 1 to 3 hour chunks, then creating a little bit of time for just whatever, phone calls with friends that you haven't talked to in a while, working on maybe a fun passion project.
Zoom calls.
Zoom call, doing this.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Yeah. This is hugely important for connectivity and collaboration, and creating things that in the moment feel really nice. Like I'm having such an awesome time chatting with you, Brian.
Likewise.
And then
Likewise.
also that can create potential carryover to future collaborations and future
Yep,
offerings.
for
So
sure. And that's
yeah.
that when we first met over the phone, it already started like 6-9 months ago, whatever that was. Can you leave us with, because those are some huge gems. So what's really important is because, you know, for those of us in the health and fitness industry, and I'm taking this to the wellness world as well, because you're not just a trainer, like you take this way beyond just strength and fitness, which is awesome. It's, you're looking at the entire person. So for those of our listeners out there, really take heed to this, to the working in versus working out. And there's a tremendous distinction. So working inwards, so dealing with the internal stuff that's going on and integrating that with your body. Can you leave us with a little bit, or any tips that you have on nutrition? Because I know you have a tremendous amount of experience there too. Just things that are maybe less inflammatory that can help us boost our immunity. Just some quick tips on nutrition.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the first thing that I'll say is when it comes to not just nutrition, but how you approach nutrition is really the big thing. And so one of the things that I've been communicating to my followers, my clients, and people that I coach is spending more time getting into eating raw food, right?
Mm.
So you get so much nutritional density and minerals and vitamins that oftentimes get stripped away by cooking your food. So even though there is an important balance of cooked food and raw food, it's about finding the balance, because a lot of people have a tendency to cook all of their food, which I think that there is an important element of doing that, especially for people that tend to err too much on the raw vegan side and vegetarian side. That eating a lot of raw food can also be very stimulating. It can be a very elevating practice. If you talk to a lot of people that are in the vegan and vegetarian place, they'll talk about how they feel like they're levitating, and there's a very much so direct connection to source through having that raw food, which is true. But also it can be very ungrounding. And that's why also, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, it's important to cook some of your food. And I'm not going to try to talk vegans or vegetarians into eating meat, even though I think it's important. I think that a lot of vegan and vegetarians are way too wrapped up into their dogma and so attached to that, like it's part of their identity,
Right.
Even though they might not be doing themselves a service. You know, they might think that they're morally doing the right thing, but for their ethical being, it's actually a disfavor to them, because they're missing out on a lot of nutrients that you are not as absorbed as well, like B12. You don't absorb B12 as well through a lot of the foods that vegans and vegetarians eat to get B12. B12 is way more accessible through, organ meats and through grass-fed, grass-finished beef and things like that. So it's actually really grounding to eat at least some cooked food, not necessarily to eat cooked ground beef, even though I recommend it. So that's the first thing. And then people that overly cook their food and are overly grounded and don't have that connection and feel that, divine energy, it's important to be eating some raw, raspberries, cranberries, blueberries, foods that are very high in antioxidants, that are,
Awesome.
free radical fighting, that are really important.
Yeah.
Eating raw broccoli is super good, right? A lot of super high quality vitamin D and calcium in broccoli, right?
Mm.
So for people that are vegetarian and vegan, that's really important to do. So once again, that's the biggest behavior, is finding the balance of raw and cooked food. So that would be the first thing that I leave people with. The next thing is making sure that you're getting enough vitamin D. And oftentimes, if you're having trouble absorbing that through food, is making sure that you're getting a really high quality vitamin D3 K2 supplement. That is imperative, especially if you're someone that doesn't absorb vitamin D very well through the sun, which this time of year, there's not as much sun. So it's really important to get one of those really high quality supplements. So that's another piece. Another thing that I recommend is cooking with a shit ton of garlic and onion, right? Garlic and onion are very antiviral and antibacterial.
Love it. Yes, huge. That's awesome.
That's, yeah, that as well. And then cooking with a lot of coconut oil at low heat, right? Because if you cook coconut oil at too high of heat, it burns and it basically becomes acidic and non-beneficial. So cooking low heat when you do cook. And also I would recommend getting a really, really high quality olive oil that is from the US. A lot of olive oil that comes in from Italy, Greece, and Spain is oftentimes spoils by the time that it gets to you, especially if it's not in a dark glass container. So that's another little thing to take heed to. So making sure that you're getting olive oil that is cold pressed, ideally first press, right? So it comes straight from that first pressing of the most ripe and juicy olives in California. That's another really powerful thing to do. And there's a lot of antioxidants and phytonutrients in olive oil, and to just take that as a shot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And for those listeners out there, so you don't cook with olive oil typically, you use it as more a cold dressing. Good. Same.
Yeah. I use it. I try to cook with either ghee, grass-fed butter. That's usually what I cook with most of the time.
Okay, wonderful. Except when you're eating raw, obviously.
Yeah.
For time's sake, man, thank you, dude. Amazing. I love you, brother. Like your approach to life and fitness and just combining it all together is just amazing. I'm so excited, stoked to be able to share this with the tribe here. And I want to write up your tips too. So I'm going to make sure we get those down, and we'll circle back. I want to get you on again so we can, break into one of these topics. And for those of you listening and chiming in, just let's tell Seve, what do you want to learn more about? Because for me, I want to learn a ton about movement, spirituality, nutrition from you. So we'll keep this going. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big acknowledgement to you, Brian, for continuously doing the work, most importantly on yourself, as you are the catalyst for the next generation with having children. And I know that your children are going to be, just absolute warriors, with all elements of life. And that's the thing that we need more of, is we need to wake people up more to the power of stepping into themselves and looking at the shadows and the things about themselves that we normally suppress with, binge watching Netflix, with alcohol, with, constant stimulation from outside sources, whether they're good or bad. Sometimes overly good information that is, being sought outside oneself, right, is good information, but we all have the individual knowledge and wisdom within ourselves, but we have to unearth all of the shit that's there first to get to all of the beauty and the light beneath all of that. So man, thank you for doing all the things that you're doing and providing so much value and healing to those that come into contact with you.
Right on, brother. All right, we'll circle back when we're offline. Love you, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother.
Thank you, Seve.
Peace.
All right.